There's a vehicle that makes up a majority of all new car sales here in the States. It weighs up to 3 tons, and it has killed hundreds of adults and children. I'm talking about light-duty trucks, including SUVs. Despite what the industry might present, light-duty trucks are nowhere near as safe as you may believe. Today, we're looking at why SUVs are more dangerous than regular passenger cars and how they're literally killing us. Here in the U.S., a light-duty truck is a broad term used for vehicles with a gross weight of up to 8,500 pounds and payload capacity of up to 4,000 pounds. This class includes vehicles like pickup trucks, vans, minivans, and SUVs. SUVs are very popular and mainstream now. In fact, it's one of the top-selling car types here in the States, making up almost 50% of U.S. car sales, and it's the largest car segment in the world. But here's the thing. SUVs are among the largest, heaviest vehicles on the road. For example, an average compact car weighs 3,300 pounds, and a typical sedan weighs 4,200 pounds. But the average full-size SUV can weigh between 5,400 and 6,000 pounds. Some of the heaviest SUVs on U.S. roads include the Chevy Tahoe, Ford Expedition, Toyota Land Cruiser and Cadillac Escalade, Toyota Sequoia, Lexus LX, and Chevy Suburban. Many people don't know it. If you're a pedestrian walking outside and you get hit by an SUV, you're 3 times more likely to die than if you get hit by a regular passenger car. 3 times. Let's say you're driving a regular passenger car. Well, if your standard car gets hit by an SUV, you're more likely to die in that crash than if a compact car or sedan was to hit you. But the SUV itself isn't all risk-free either. Let's suppose you're behind the wheel of an SUV. Well, in the event of a car crash, you're 2 times as likely to be killed in a rollover than if you were to drive a standard car. If you're wondering why SUVs are even allowed on our road, since they pose a higher risk of fatality, that's a valid question. Here's the thing. Vehicles in the light-duty category often promote their safety features, which is ironic because some of these same safety features are what make them so deadly. Here's what I mean. Fear is a powerful motivator, and that's exactly what car brands did to make SUVs as popular as they are today. Decades ago, Americans as a whole were becoming more concerned about crime and violence. Car makers were quick to capitalize on that fear and vulnerability. Soon we started seeing car ads that appealed to consumers' concern for safety. Ads that promise safety and protection. Take Jeep, for example. In 2001, it put out an ad for the Grand Cherokee where the print said, "Think of it as a 4,000-pound guardian angel." Car ads started conveying the message that the bigger and bulkier the car, the safer you are. And that's how we got where we are today. Think of how ridiculously large the Hummer is, or even the Cadillac Escalade. In America, we think that's normal. But did you know that the Escalade is practically the size of a Sherman tank from World War II? And here's the thing. What car makers weren't telling us was that these SUVs are getting so big that it significantly reduced the driver's visibility. You'd assume you're sitting higher up in an SUV that visibility would be better. And yes, for sure, you might see taller things better, but not smaller things, and that includes small children. In one study, an advocacy group put 17 children in front of an SUV and the driver couldn't see any of them from the driver's seat. But that's not all. Because these behemoth vehicles were so heavy, the chassis became more of a battering ram than a protective cushion. Let's talk about bumper height for a moment. Legally, cars on American roads must have bumpers that are anywhere between 16 to 20 inches above the ground, except for vehicles in the light-duty category. Light-duty trucks have bumpers that can be as high as they want. Imagine this very real scenario of giant SUVs. A giant battering ram with sky-high bumper slams into a regular car that's standard weight and lower to the ground. Guess what happens? Serious injury and in many cases death. One study found that head-on crashes between a regular passenger car versus an SUV, the odds of death were 7.6 times higher for the driver in a regular car. And in crashes where the car had a better crash test rating than the SUV did, the driver of the regular car did fare somewhat better, but not much. They were still 4.5 times more likely to die than the giant SUV driver. But let's step back for a second. Despite how dangerous SUVs can be, today's SUV make up close to 50% of all new car sales here in the United States. It's the same in Canada. But if you were to rewind several decades back, you wouldn't see any SUVs on the road. So how did we go from 0 to 50% in just a few decades? Believe it or not, it all started with chickens. I'm serious. American chickens, actually. In the 1960s, Europe decided to place a heavy import tax on American chickens. In response, the U.S. levied out our own import taxes, specifically on European light-duty trucks. That added some fuel to the already burning desire of U.S. car makers to start pumping out their own light-duty trucks. But actually, it was fuel efficiency regulations that really helped grow the light-duty truck category. There's a thing called the Corporate Average Fuel Economy Standards, or CAFE for short. It requires all car makers in the U.S. to improve the average fuel economy of their fleets. If they don't comply, they get hit with big penalties. So they created a loophole. They were able to get light-duty trucks to be classified differently from passenger cars. So now, instead of building cars that met CAFE standards, they could legally pump out light-duty trucks that avoided the safety and emissions regulations. That's why car makers started promoting and marketing vehicles in the light-duty truck category as the must-buy vehicles. In fact, you step back and look at some of the early SUVs, you can see they basically look like pickup trucks with a longer roof. But now picture this. Let's say you're driving an SUV and you see a family crossing the street. You think they're all done crossing, but what you don't see is the youngest little girl is behind her family still crossing the street. But since your SUV is so tall and has poor visibility down low, you don't see her, and you inadvertently step on the gas. If you think this is a very extreme example, well, unfortunately, that wasn't hypothetical. It happens in real life. But it gets worse. One study found that, over a 10-year period, over 500 American children were run over by SUVs and killed. Even sadder is that in many cases, they were run over by their own parents in their own driveways. And this is not an uncommon thing, even today. You can Google fatal SUV accidents and you can readily see all sorts of incidents. Here's the thing about getting hit by a car. If you, as a pedestrian, were to get hit by an average car, chances are you get thrown on the hood. Now, don't get me wrong, that could seriously injure you, especially your legs. But chances are, if the vehicle was driving slow enough, it won't kill you. That is, unless that vehicle happened to be an SUV. SUVs generally have higher front ends, and that means you'll get hit in the torso or head, not just your legs, depending on your height, of course. Also, pedestrians who get hit by SUVs have a higher chance of hitting their head on the ground or being crushed under the SUV because of its high ground clearance. Now, let's say you're an adult on the taller end of the height spectrum. An SUV with a high bumper might not hit your head as it would a child, but it'd likely smash right into your rib cage and vital organs. When you get hit in that area, it's directly hitting your center of gravity, and that means a higher chance you'll get pushed forward and then run over. Back in 2012, YouTuber Mark Rober did an experiment where he put plastic animals on the side of the road to see which animals which most likely get hit. Get this. He found that some drivers swerved to intentionally hit the animals. Sad thing is, 89% of those intended animal killers were drivers behind the wheels of an SUV. SUVs are also major contributors to pollution. Remember, SUVs aren't required to meet the same safety and emission standards as regular passenger cars on our roads today. You have to understand that powering a vehicle that's bigger and heavier requires more fuel and creates more emissions. Also, since SUVs are generally higher off the ground, they're less aerodynamic, which means less fuel economy, especially at higher speeds. Tesla informed U.S. auto safety regulators of two new recent fatal crashes here in the States. Both involved the Tesla Model 3. Both fatalities were also tied to the Tesla Advanced Driver Assistance Systems. Back in June 2021, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration issued an order that required car makers and tech companies to immediately report all crashes involving advanced driver assistance systems. Now, this is a good thing because this requirement also applies to vehicles equipped with automated driving systems tested on public roads. Once a report gets sent in, then NHTSA conducts an investigation. And from these investigations alone, 19 Tesla-related crash deaths were reported. In the viral video, a Tesla Model Y was filmed accelerating at a high speed for 1.6 miles, and its brake lights appeared to be off. And then it crashed. 2 people lost their lives. One was a motorcyclist, and the other victim was a high school student on a bicycle. The car also injured 3 others, including the driver. A family member of the driver told local Chinese media that the Tesla's brake pedal was unresponsive. Apparently, even when the driver tried to shift the vehicle to park, the Model Y showed no signs of slowing down. It's a very sad, tragic event, but wait until you hear Tesla's response to all of this. After the family's claims, Tesla China denied the vehicle's brakes were unresponsive during the incident. According to Tesla China, data from the Model Y before the crash showed that the accelerator pedal was deeply depressed for an extended period of time. But there was one claim that Tesla China did confirm. The car maker found that when the Model Y was in motion, the driver briefly pressed the park button 4 times and the brake lights turned on and off quickly. But here's the thing you need to understand about pressing park while your Tesla's in motion. Sure, pressing the park button while a Tesla's in motion should stop it, but only if you press the button for an extended period of time. So even though reports confirmed that the driver pressed the button 4 times, apparently it wasn't long enough of a press, so no braking was applied. Despite Tesla China denying some of the claims made by the driver's family, social media is siding with the driver, not with Tesla. Apparently, the driver of the Model Y used to be a truck driver. In other words, he wasn't some inexperienced kid behind the wheel. Believe it or not, this is far from being the first and only incident where Tesla China's vehicles have been accused of alleged brake failure. In 2021, Tesla was splashed across the international headlines after a female protester at the Shanghai Auto Show climbed on top of one of the Tesla's display vehicles in protest. The protester yelled that she almost died because her Tesla's brakes failed, and she got the attention she was looking for. After her protest and criticism from local authorities and state-run media, Tesla China publicly apologized, though Tesla didn't acknowledge any defect in the car. After that, other multiple alleged brake failure incidents involving Tesla started popping up all over social media. Evidently, Tesla China's media team stepped in and got involved, but that didn't stop multiple media sources from calling Tesla's EVs unsafe. Tesla China also experienced another issue with its EVs. This time it had to do with battery management software issues in the Model S and Model X, and seatbelt issues in the Model 3. And because of these safety issues, Tesla China announced a combined recall of nearly 81,000 vehicles. Tesla didn't release too much information or specifics of what exactly was wrong with the software and seatbelts, but it did say that for the first recall, the affected models were imported vehicles built between September 2013 and November 2020. That's a 7-year period. Tesla also said it planned to fix the nearly 68,000 Teslas that have the battery management software issue with a free software update. The second recall impacting seatbelts covered some 2,700 imported Model 3s. This one is a different story altogether. That's because this recall has to do with potentially faulty seatbelt. Apparently, the seatbelts in question might have been installed the wrong way. This recall impacts Model 3s that were imported between January and November of 2022, and an additional 10,000 plus Model 3s made in China between October 2019 and September 2022. Obviously, this one is a physical safety issue and one that can't be done over the air via software update. Instead, owners need to return their Model 3s to a nearby Tesla location for inspection and replacement. Then there's yet another recall back in April 2022. Tesla announced to recall almost 128,000 Model 3s in China. This time the issue was with potential faults in certain semiconductor components that can lead to dangerous collisions. But Tesla isn't experiencing recent problems just in China alone. Take a look at Australia. 16,000 of the 2022 Tesla Model 3 and Model Ys were being recalled by Tesla Australia. This one has to do with the Model 3 and Model Ys taillights not illuminating correctly because of a software issue. When it gets dark outside, the last thing you want is a malfunctioning taillight. The recall statement issued by Tesla Australia acknowledged that this can increase the risk of an accident, causing serious injury or death to the passengers in the Tesla and other cars on the road. According to Tesla, the problem doesn't affect the brake lamps, reverse lights, or signal lamps. It's only the tail lights that are having these issues. Since the taillight malfunction is caused by software issues, Tesla said owners don't need to come in for a service appointment, but that it would fix the issue via over-the-air software updates. But now get this, in 2022, from January to the end of October, Tesla reportedly sold almost 8,700 Model 3s and 6,450 Model Ys in Australia. So we're talking more than 15,000 cars sold in that period. But now let's bring it all home. Can't talk about Tesla issues and recalls in China, Australia, and abroad without also talking about what's happening here in the States. Because trust me, when it comes to Tesla malfunction and issues, unfortunately, we've got lots of them. Tesla announced a major recall that affects Teslas here in the States. But this isn't a small recall. In fact, it affects over 321,000 Teslas in America. It's related to the software glitch which causes the taillights to go on and off intermittently and increase the risk of a collision. Specifically impacts 2020 to even 2023 Model Ys and 2023 Model 3s. If all this sounds familiar, well, yes, it's like the recall that was issued in China impacting Model 3 and Model Ys. As of November 14, 2022, Tesla had received 3 warranty claims because of the taillight-related problem. But according to official documents, Tesla was not aware of any crashes or injuries related to the software glitch so far. This recall also affects Teslas in Canada, but no specific numbers have been released for the Canadian ones. Around the same time, Tesla reported another problem, and this one impacts the Model X, close to 30,000 of them to be exact. Apparently, there's an issue that can even cause the front passenger airbag to deploy incorrectly in a low-speed collision event. After that announcement, Tesla shares dropped 2%. That was the lowest its share had dropped in almost 2 years. In the official recall notice, Tesla stated that this issue can increase the risk of more dangerous injury if the front seat passenger is a young person as opposed to an adult. Earlier that same month, there was another recall. When it rains, it pours. This time, we're we're talking some 40,000 Teslas. Specifically, the affected vehicles involve 2017 to 2021 Model S and Model X Teslas. The issue here is these specific models can potentially experience a loss of power steering assist when driving on rough roads, or even after the car hits a pothole. Now, this is a serious safety issue. The reason why this can be dangerous is because when you lose power steering assist, it can take more effort to steer, especially at low speeds, and it can increase your risk of crashing. Tesla did receive 314 vehicle alerts related to this particular problem. To fix the issue, Tesla released another over-the-air software update that recalibrated the affected systems so that the system can better detect unexpected steering assist torque. By the way, did you know that in 2022, from January to the beginning of November, Tesla had issued 17 recall campaigns, and those campaigns impacted a combined total of 3.4 million Teslas. Now, I know what you might be thinking. These U.S. recalls probably sound more inconvenient or annoying, but maybe they're not as bad as compared to the 2 fatalities allegedly caused by the Model Ys in China. And in a way, you're right. None of the recent U.S. recalls I mentioned caused any deaths or injury in the States as of yet. But that's not to say that it's never been a serious case with the Tesla here in the States. During a 4-month period, 11 people were killed here in the U.S., and these crashes involved vehicles that were using automated driving systems of some sort. Of the 11, 10 involved the Tesla. Now, according to NHTSA, it was unclear whether the technology itself was at fault or whether the driver made a mistake themselves. If you expand the time period, from July 2021 to May 2022, there were 6 reported deaths due to crashes involving automated driving systems, and 5 of these 6 deaths occurred in a Tesla. In each case, the advanced driver assist system was apparently in use. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Personally, I don't believe the autopilot systems are anywhere near the state they need to be deemed safe for the driver and other cars on the road. It's just not ready yet, in my opinion, to be considered reliable. There's still a lot more development and testing that needs to take place before the autopilot system can be trusted more than a human driver. You might think this is just my personal opinion, and yes, it is. But look, even safety advocates are saying that the number of incidents involving Teslas and automated driver assisted systems such as Autopilot have been increasing. So I say, just look at the stats and the pattern and let the numbers do the talking. But now you tell me, what do you think about Tesla's Autopilot system? And do you trust it? Please share by commenting below. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for your support.